This has been a hard, grueling Holy Week. It's been hard because we couldn't gather together physically in our church communities, but it's been harder still with the knowledge of suffering and death all around us. Many of us are grieving for jobs that have been lost, or friends, colleagues, or family we don't see, grieving for a pattern of living and sense of security that has been disrupted, possibly forever, grieving for the freedom to go out whenever we want. Perhaps some of you are grieving for loved ones who have died. Or like me, perhaps you're just grieving with the knowledge that people, even people you don't know, are hurting and dying. As a priest, I've grieved for a sense of leading people through Holy Week. During Holy Week and Easter, I would normally be taking lots of services and leading lots of meditations and reflections. But with our church buildings being closed, that really important role has been taken away from me, and I miss it. We have tried out new ways of doing worship online, but it's not quite the same. In an odd way, though, this has made Holy Week feel all the more real because of it. Palm Sunday was all about dashed dreams and expectations. Jesus entered Jerusalem on a donkey as Israel's promised king. The people greeted him, but the religious leaders rejected him. Perhaps some of your dreams and plans have been shattered by the corona crisis. I know my plans for Palm Sunday were. And perhaps it's with those shattered dreams and expectations that you are at now. Then in Holy Week we looked at Jesus clearing the temple of those trading and changing money. This crisis has revealed much that is amiss in our temples that needs clearing out. The ruthless exploitation of the natural world has led to a previously unknown virus jumping from one wild species held in confinement to another, and then onto human beings, the consumers of the natural world. Political expediency and denial confounded the problem, along with the silencing of those raising the alarm. The mind-boggling carbon-emitting network of global air travel quickly spread the virus around the world with rapidity unprecedented in human history. The virus has spread as a result of the same human behaviours that are putting our natural world, God's creation, at risk. Our attention in Holy Week then shifted to the anointing at Bethany and Mary preparing Jesus for his burial. It's no secret that funerals over the next few months will be a short affair, and that clergy have been asked not to anoint the ill and dying in hospital. On Maundy Thursday we remembered how Jesus shared his Last Supper with his disciples. Perhaps there are people you really wish you could eat with again. People you miss deeply. He then went to the Garden of Gethsemane, pleading with his disciples to watch and pray with him, but they were too tired. asking God to take the cup from him. Judas then handed him over to his enemies, and Simon Peter later denied ever knowing him by another fire. Perhaps during this crisis you felt let down by someone you should have been able to trust, or perhaps you've let down someone who trusted you. Perhaps you feel helpless, just waiting for the suffering that is to come, waiting in your own Gethsemane. If that's where you are, know that Jesus has been there too. On Good Friday, Jesus was tortured, forced to wear a crown, a coronum of thorns, and led out to die on the cross. There is really no nice way, no saccharine, sanitised way of talking about this death. It was a horrible, painful death as he struggled for breath. It was horrible both for him and for those who loved him. While he was on the cross, some people asked Jesus why God didn't stop his suffering. Many of you might find yourselves asking why God allows this sort of suffering to happen, and many of you will be asked. I don't have any answers. All I know is that on the cross, Jesus, God the Son, the second person of the divine Trinity, the one through whom all things were made, suffers with us as one of us. And I take some comfort from that. On Holy Saturday, Jesus lay dead and buried in the tomb. On the day that our TVs were full of images of mass burials in New York, we remembered Jesus lying in a borrowed grave. It felt like despair and death and darkness had won. And perhaps that's where you are now. And so we come to Easter, to this fire. And I must confess, I am not ready for Easter. It's still all too much like Holy Week for me. Too early to jump to celebrating the victory to come. Where I find myself is more with the ending of Mark's Gospel and the confusing, bewildering, unsettling, empty tomb. There's no happy ending in Mark. No happily ever after. Not in the original anyway. just fear and confusion. The glorious resurrection feels very distant. It's at best a promise or a rumour, a whisper in the dark I don't dare to name, let alone believe. For the time being, for me anyway, this Easter, as the song says, it's a cold and it's a broken Alleluia.